Well, good afternoon once again. It's officially afternoon. My name is Myron Randall. I'm the Associate Director of Recruitment and Community Engagement here at Mercer University. And one more time, welcome to Mercer University's Professional Development Series. I am here with a dear friend of mine, Dr. Miriam Quispe-Anuli, who is an Associate Professor of Economics here at Mercer University's Stetson Hatcher School of Business. And we're talking about the new normal. We're going to look at job market trends and find out, is the job market up? Is the job market down? What has been the effect of COVID-19 on the job market right here in America? I am looking forward to having this conversation, but before we talk about the job market, Dr. Quispe-Anuli, I'd like to talk a little bit about you. Would you tell us how long you've been at Mercer, how you got to Mercer, and how you got interested in studying economics?
Thank you very much, Myron. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Yes, I have been at Mercer since 2015. You know, it will be 5 years starting this academic year. And before, I was a research economist at the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. And I have been there for 15 years. Therefore, we have been in the ups and downs, and I was in the Great Recession while I was working there. And I could see, you know, how the economic activity was suffering, as well as the disappearance of jobs. And because of that, I have been always interested on the trends in the job market, occupations, what was going on with employment, and especially the changing characteristics of the different occupations in terms of skills. And that is where my curiosity, and also in economics, right? All of that is economics. Then here at Mercer, I had the pleasure to be teaching international economics as well as foundations in the MBA program as well as the undergraduate program. Also, in the business analytics program, I teach data mining and introduction to R. Then that's what I do at Mercer.
That is a full plate, and I am excited that you are with us to talk about this. And I know every economist I know has some charts and graphs, so I feel like you're going to show us a few today, and I'm excited to learn a little bit more. So I'm going to hang out with you and kind of have a dialogue, if that's okay with you. I've got a few questions that I'd like to ask about job market trends. So I'm going to give you the floor, and let's talk about the job market and the new normal.
Thank you so much. Well, let's start. And as you mentioned, this presentation will have 3 parts. The first part is, I just wanted to mention briefly why this time is different. You know, what is the economic impact of the pandemic? And it has meant a difference, right, in terms of what we have learned before in other crises. The second is, how does this pandemic affect the job market, right? And we are going, we are going to see some charts, some numbers, but I hope that you understand, you know, we can see trends in order to be, and start talking about our third part on how to prepare for the new normal in this job market, in this new situation. Then let's start. The first is, why is this time different? Why is the pandemic affecting the economy differently? Well, the first point that I would like to mention is that in previous crises, the Great Depression, the Great Recession, always, you know, the problems came up within the system, within the economic system. This is the first time that the government had to shut down the economy, right? This is the first time that the government had to create this recession, that I cannot call it officially recession, but it's coming, unfortunately. You know, this, and why? Because the lockdown was necessary to avoid contagion. Then this is the first time that it didn't come out within the system, right? The second is, I have written a word that some of you have had in your economics courses, you know, externalities. And in this case, I mentioned that because in this situation is different from our common supply and demand, right? Do you remember supply and demand? And this supply and demand intersects and sets up the price of the good or the service that you are going to purchase. Well, in this case, with the pandemic, my behavior affects your behavior, and your behavior affects my behavior. And that includes an extra cost, right? It's a social cost that is imposed on businesses, on workers, on customers. Then please think about, this interaction that we are having and how it is included in each transaction. And therefore, it affects the job market as well and the economic situation. And third, my third point about why is this time different is that the lockdown, when the government starts shutting down the economy, it didn't happen everywhere at once. Every state start, implementing the lockdown at different times. Yeah. Therefore, the adjustment is going to be different. The reopening is going to be at different stages, right? Then that is the first part that I just wanted to have for you, and to to have that as a background. And from there, we will be able to look at job trends. What happened? What does all this mean in terms of the labor market? Then what we are going to see mostly are unemployment rates and the difference between unemployment rates of these last months, April or May, with respect to the year before, the April or May of the year before. Okay, that's pretty much that's what we are going to be looking at. For example, here we are looking at the unemployment rate. The blue line, it's the unemployment rate from 1948 until May of 2020, okay? And as you can see, in December of 2019, the unemployment rate was 3.5%. Now, in May, it went up to 13.3 after a decline from April that it topped at 14.7%. Now, those two numbers are higher than any other time, as you can see. Now, please look at the green bars. The green bars denotes, shows you the years where the economy was in recession. That means a contraction of the economic activity. And that is, as you can see, the unemployment rate goes up, especially when there is a contraction in economic activity, right? And goes down when the economy is doing great, right? Those are called the business cycles. No?
This is such an interesting chart. You've got something down at the bottom. Let me ask this question. You've got unemployment rates versus broad unemployment rates. What's the difference in those two terms?
Well, as you can see, thank you very much. I brought up the notion of broad unemployment rates because it has been in the media and the press. No, usually economists look at the unemployment rate because we try to only look at the labor force. That means everybody who is looking for a job. Instead, broad unemployment rates take into consideration those people that maybe are not looking for a job, but they want to work, They know that out there they cannot be finding a job right now, but they are saying, I want to work, no? And that's why those numbers are even higher. It topped to almost 23% in April from 6.7% in December. Therefore, it has been, it has been quite an increase and a decline of 21.2%, right, in May. But that is the difference. And many, as I said, many people, they said, yeah, we could look at that. And as you can see, the contrast is huge, right? Because of that wish of people looking for jobs, right?
So does that broad unemployment rate include those that are underemployed, folks that have jobs but are not employed at the level that they need to be at, or is that
Yes, actually, the broad unemployment rate can be found in the statement about the employment situation of underutilization of the labor force. No, and one of the categories are people that actually might have had a degree, but they are not working, in activities, in occupations that require that degree. Let's say if it is, a medical doctor, it has a degree for a medical doctor, but is washing dishes in a restaurant, for example, right? That's the kind, and what we are talking about is that they are not using their degree in the occupation that they got it for.
That makes sense. And that's why that number is so large.
Is very large, right? But but in economics, as we say, we try to be very careful because we need to compare, apples to apples, right? And in broad, we have too many factors, too many people that show their wish, right? But it's hard. It's hard to. Our next chart is about the difference in the impact of the pandemic on unemployment rates. And please, these are not unemployment rates. These are percentage points. Is the difference between the unemployment rate in April 2019 and in April of 2020. And I just wanted to point out the states that are very dark, the darkest ones, and those are Nevada, Hawaii, and Michigan. Nevada and Hawaii are very much into leisure and hospitality. Those industries are heavily in those states, and they have been hurt a lot. In Michigan, as you are going to see, is manufacturing, right? Manufacturing, especially in automobiles and other transportation items. As you realize in the map, it's very interesting because you see that this difference, unemployment rates have been higher, especially on the West Coast and on that belt. Can you see from Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama to the Northeast, right? Then it's geographically is where the industries are located, right? And also it could be also where there are some problems. We are seeing some Appalachian states there, right? Then in that sense, it's very important. On the other hand, and we are going to see the impact of the pandemic in the middle. Can you see how clear it is? Yes, the difference are there. There has been an increase, please don't tell me wrong, but still the impact hasn't been so much in the Midwest. Maybe.
On this one. About recovery. So will it take longer for those darker colored states to recover than the ones that are lighter?
We hope that by reopening these industries, they will be able to, to get and recover as soon as possible. The problem is the discussion of the pandemic and the second wave, right? The sanitary conditions that are imposed on businesses to open up, and especially these are leisure and hospitality, is the connection with a person, no? Then that is the big question mark. And actually, one of the in one of the interviews of Mr. Powell with the Federal Reserve Board last week, he was mentioning that for the entire year, they were thinking that there's going to be an unemployment rate on average of 9%. And the economic activity was going to contract 6.5%. No, and please, there is a lot in there from the uncertainty. We don't know what is going to happen, right? We don't know how quickly those jobs can come back. And it all depends of this interaction of this extra social cost, as I mentioned at the beginning, that is imposed on businesses and customers and workers. Everybody has to be very careful about this, getting contagious.
That makes sense. The pandemic still exists. And so that'll kind of measure our rate of recovery. That makes sense to me.
That's right. And I think that's one of the main issues, even for the projections from the Federal Reserve Bank. this is another graph that I just wanted to bring the same data from before to here, showing you the big difference and how we can group these states, right? Once again, the bars are just the difference between the unemployment rate of between April 2020 and 2019. And I just put in colors the different ranges. But as you can see, the top three states were the ones who had actually rates, percentage points that were around 18% and more. Then that's how bad they have been hurt, right? And from then on, what we see is groups of countries that have been able to cope with the pandemic depending on their industrial composition, on the, what type of industries they have. I would like you to see Minnesota, for example, that is down there. Minnesota has a quite diversified industry composition in their economy, and they have a lot of services, in many sectors. Then that has created, a very, a smaller impact than in other states.
That makes sense.
No?
Thinking about Georgia there, I know we depend on services and travel, but we also have some technology firms here and things of that nature, which probably has us kind of in the middle there and not as impacted as heavily.
Yes, exactly. And as you're going to see later on, is that the ability to telework matters, right? The ability on how to perform your occupation will matter, right? Then that's regarding the states. Now, then we are looking at the state, the difference of the effect of the pandemic on the states. Now, let's look at just industries. And here, please, the industries have been arranged according to the net change, okay? And the net change, these are percentage points between the difference between May 2019 and May 2020. And as you can see, for example, leisure and hospitality shows unemployment rates that are around approximately 36%, more than 1/3 of employment in these industries have been affected by the pandemic, followed by other services. And what are these other services? Please, we have personal care, pet care services, machinery repairs, even I put administering religious activities, right? All this affects, this is the interaction. These are industries where face-to-face customer interaction is necessary, at least before the pandemic, right? The question is, and maybe one of the strategies on how to adapt to the new market is, how can you change this interaction? And we have seen it right now. We are having a Zoom meeting instead of a conference in the classroom, correct? Then, that is the second group of industries that have been also affected, were wholesale and retail trade, transportation and utilities, construction and manufacturing. And especially within manufacturing is durable goods that are cars, electrical appliances, furniture. Those are, the production of these goods have been affected. As you can see, you can have around 13 to 15% of unemployment rates. In terms of transportation and utilities, please be aware that yes, you have one is the movement of goods, the goods from one region to another. But that, you might say, well, that might have created some jobs. Yes, but also all kinds of transportation, air, sea transportation, everything has been, affected by that, and it counterbalances any kind of increase in trucking, for example. Utilities have been largely affected by the pandemic, Why? Because in industries are not producing. No? Then that's where we see these large unemployment rates. Now, in terms of occupations, then we have looked at the states, we look at industries. Now let's look at occupations. Which are the type of occupations that have been affected the most? And here I have put the first set. I have divided in two groups. And here we see service occupations, right? And among them, what they have been negatively affected is food preparation and serving that goes along with leisure and hospitality, correct? And personal care, that as you can see, it's with other services. Please look underneath, because we have also production and transportation and sales and in offices, right? We have that. But look at under natural resources, construction and maintenance occupations. The ones that have been affected the most are construction and instruction and installation and repair. Then there is a common denominator here, is that customer base relation that has been negatively affected by the pandemic. Then that is the kind of occupations. Now let's go to the other group that are professional services, occupation and professional services here. And once again, please realize that in these tables, I'm looking at unemployment rates in May 2019, and their net change. And as you are realizing, in May of 2019, the unemployment rate for management, professional, and related occupations was 1.7%. It was less than 2%.
That's a pretty outstanding rate, but then look at May 2020.
Exactly, and it went to 6%, but still lower than anywhere else, correct? Now, among these, and this is because of how these services, these occupations can be performed. They can be performed at home. They can telework. Technology have helped them, help these workers to perform their services, to perform their jobs at home. Then it's technology that have helped there. Therefore, in this case, these occupations, management, professional, and other related occupations have been least affected by the pandemic. However, within that, I would like to bring two types. One, arts, design, entertainment, sports, and media. You can see the unemployment rate is around 18%. Then also education, training, and library is around 12%. Then that has been, however, I don't know if you have realized, but even with soccer or baseball, they are trying to go back and having games, correct?
They're not making money if they're not playing the sport.
Exactly. No, then in that scenario, even education and training, we are seeing, right, that this huge change on how to deliver these services. It has taken a while, though. That's what we are seeing in these rates. The adjustment is taking a while, but I promise you, it's going to catch up, correct?
Well, because we know education usually prospers during recession, right?
Correct. That's right. And we are going to see some information about that as well. Please, the third one that I would like to point out is healthcare practitioners and technical, right? Yes, it has been 5.8, but remember, these are management, professional, and related occupations. Not necessarily, we can include emergency, and that is related to the pandemic, but for example, the non-essential surgeries and all that. Have you had a telemedicine appointment? I'm pretty sure by now, at least, people might have had some experience with that. How in the world you would have found that medical doctors can talk to you via Zoom or any other conference call, right? And then that's one. Now, then as you have seen, is we have been looking at trends, and what we have seen here is that geographically, We have a differential effect. We see a different effect in industries, and we see a different effect on occupations. And pretty much it will depend on how you can perform your work, right? In order to start thinking about how to prepare for this new normal, what I wanted to do was to see actually what was going on, what happens with education, right? Who are the ones who are better prepared to face this situation? And in this case, I wanted to show you these unemployment rates by educational attainment. And what we see, these are lines, the black line, it's or the top line, it's the one that shows workers with less than a high school diploma, followed by workers with high school diploma, and followed by some college or an associate degree. And the lowest line, that means the lowest unemployment rates, are the ones who have a bachelor's degree or another higher degree.
Wow. So I'm, as an education professional here, right? This is so fascinating to me because it says, one, that education still pays off.
Definitely. Yes. I would say not only pays off during the crisis, but also, have you realized that in every single crisis in 2010, where I have this vertical line, that also, it helped during the Great Recession of 2008, 2010, workers, employees with that have a bachelor's degree or more, they were the ones who at least were able to deal with the crisis in a better way than workers that didn't have this degree. No?
I've got to pause and say, any of our prospective students that are watching, you should definitely come to Mercer. And if you want to know why, look at this graph, because it is demonstrative of the fact that your education is going to be worth it.
Yeah, and it gives you certain certainty. It gives you a stability, because you want some stable income, a stream, right? Income, you want some revenues that are stable, and that's what education does. It was very interesting to see, can you see the difference between an associate degree and a bachelor's degree? It's very big. Actually, an associate degree is closer to a high school diploma, right? Workers with a high school diploma.
Wow, that's impressive. I'm going to share that with some of our folks that are in our 2-year school, saying that, hey, getting your bachelor's degree is worth it.
Yeah, it's definitely. And I do understand that sometimes, we have one of those high-tech gurus that didn't finish the university, right? College. But those are the exceptions.
That's not the rule, apparently. It is certainly not the rule.
Yes, definitely. Now, the other information that I wanted to bring you was in order, and this is pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, okay? And this is numbers from a study from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And please, all the statistics come from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, publicly available. And in this study, what they were projecting, and these are projections of jobs, number of jobs in sales occupations from in 10 years, from 2018 to 2028. And once again, no pandemic. And as you can see, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, all occupations are going to have a 5.2% of increase in jobs. However, sales and related occupations, they were projecting a decline of 0.5% in the number of occupations. Now, the important part of this, and the lesson that I wanted to bring was, yes, but what within the sales occupations, some of them were declining, however, some of them were increasing. And I think that the lesson here is, what are the type of skills that are required in those occupations whose number of jobs are projected to increase? And And please, I repeat, this projection is before the pandemic. Then, for example, telemarketers are going to decline more than 16%, right? And what happens is that now technology gives you, the power of just, shut them out. You don't want to talk to telemarketers at all, right? You can even add your name to one of those lists, and they don't have to call you. Your cell phone will tell you it's a spam, right? Then in that sense, they see their jobs, there are no possibility for jobs, as well as door-to-door sales worker, travel agents, cashiers, retail salespersons. All of those occupations are projected to decline. And this is in 2018. And why? Because they are these occupations that are going to be affected, very by technology. That's what a travel agent, I'm sorry, but now you have all these apps that you can organize your trip and your vacation on the internet, correct?
Very true.
No, as well as retail salespersons. Unless that is a very highly specialized item that it might even go down in another category. The retail salesperson is completely, substituted by e-commerce, right? The internet, Amazon. This is what there has been substituting all these jobs. This technology, right?
Even in major box retailers like Walmart, they're replacing cashiers with those automated self-cashier.
Correct. Then in that sense, but once again, it's this technological advancement, technology that is creating these new types of occupations, actually. And please look down. It's what we are seeing is the number of the occupations whose numbers are projected to increase are sales engineers, real estate sales agents, real estate brokers, insurance sales agents. One common characteristic: these are complex jobs.
Gotcha.
These required extra knowledge in this. Requires a specialization, a deeper knowledge, analytical skills, communication skills to explain in simple terms very difficult ideas, and especially insurance sales agents, right? They are going to be working in an environment that are required to elaborate and prepare different products, is the individual products, because technology is allowing you to do that. In previous conversations, we were talking about real estate sales agents, right? 10 years, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, a real estate agent was a person who was telling you which houses were available. They had their own list, or you were checking your newspaper. Please, This is 15 years ago. Actually, that's when I bought my house. Therefore, this is... now, a real estate sales agent, they need to know, they need to know how to put their house in a website. They have to stage that website properly, because they have to take videos or pictures for their website. They have to analyze the information of everybody who has been looking at that house in the website before even showing the house. Then, as you are realizing, there are technological skills, analytical skills, and soft skills, of course, that are very important for these type of jobs.
Wow.
Then that is even, and once again, pre-pandemic, correct? Therefore, you can imagine how the pandemic, in my opinion, the pandemic is going to push these jobs even further, right? To be even more complex, given the technology that we are going to find. Now, these are, I was thinking about our business students, and now our business analytics students as well. And this is a table from an article that is, the source is skill requirements across firms and labor markets. And what they were using here were looking at ads, advertisements in In this case, this is Burning Glass, these are professional ads, and what they were looking at, what were the skills that were required for these different occupations. And as you can see, there are three main types of skills: cognitive, social, and character. The cognitive skill is mostly knowledge, how much you know your field, right? How much, and that's why, as you can see, in financial analysts, managers, even loan officer, accountants, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Social, that's the second skill that is very high in different occupations, and is pretty much communication skills,
Wow.
Also, how can you explain, especially how can you explain complex ideas in simple terms, right? As I tell my students, how can you explain your classroom or your presentation to your grandmother, great grandmother, right? And therefore, that's not that I am not insulting the grandparent. It's just simply that just may not be in the same field.
Yes.
In character, what they are thinking is mostly, the commitment to the job, teamwork, right? That's the part of the character. Also, in cognitive skills, we are talking about analytical skills. Now, beside that, then you have, for certain occupations, would you have the extra skills like financial, computer, and software, right? But these three main elements are very important for all the occupations that might be, among, that might be of interest for our students. But once again, this is information even COVID. Now, finally, this is from the Pew Research Center, right? How can we explain also these different unemployment rates according to education levels? And one information that I got from Pew Research Center is that during the pandemic, there was 90% of the decrease in employments, but especially the ones who were unemployed were the ones that couldn't telework, and in their survey, 62% of the respondents, that were able to telework had a bachelor's degree. No, then I think that is an important, also it's a very important information about the value, of education.
Yeah, that underscores it completely, that you may have more options when you've got an education and when you've pursued that education attainment.
Correct. And this is kind of the summary of what we have been talking about, from our impacts and trends in the labor market into what we have learned on how to prepare. One, keep your skills technologically updated. You have to follow the technology. You have to, especially for our students, you have to keep up with the technology in your field. Also, keep those analytical skills sharp. You know what you know. Your job is going to become more and more complex because of the technology, right? The fourth is love what you do. And I say that because I could have said just network and communication. What happened is that when you love your job, it shows. It shows when you talk to people, and talking to people is very important because you need to communicate and show and tell them how much you can give in what your accomplishments are, and how can you perform in jobs. And fourth, and not less important, continuous learning, you know.
Oh, there you go. We lost you there for a minute. And
Oh,
I,
sorry.
so yeah,
Am I okay?
there you're back. Okay.
Perfect. Continuous learning is very important. Don't stop learning. I'm sorry, you thought that you had the final exam of the final course in your career. No, it is, you need to update your skills with certificates. Keep right now, online learning is, give you plenty of information. All these four areas is going to give you flexibility, productivity, and adaptability. Flexibility because it's going to let you, follow the new changes and adapt very quickly to what is going on, and elevate, the type of performance, your performance in your job. And that's my presentation for today.
This is wonderful. And we've got a few questions. Folks, if you've got questions, feel free to put those in the question and answer function there down at the bottom. But one question says, so we're in the middle of a pandemic and in the middle of social unrest, talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. So what is the impact on various race, ethnicities, and gender? What does the job market look like for those different demographics?
Thank you, Myron. Thank you. And actually, I'm sorry, but I am prepared for this because I was thinking that due to the context of our environment today, it was important. These are few numbers, and once again, I am looking at unemployment rates. In the first table, what we have is gender, the difference in unemployment rates for men and women, in terms of for May 2019 and May 2020. And as you can see, yes, right now we have a 13.3% of unemployment. Men have only 12, and 14.5 is for women. Then therefore there is a difference. And we have seen that in cycles. Many times women are, have higher unemployment rates during business cycles, especially during recessions, than men. Regarding race and ethnicity, and as you can see, there is a quite differential, unemployment rates among them. As you are going to see, please, look at May 2019.
Mm-hmm.
May 2019, the racial group that has, even though the economy was doing great, but they had a higher unemployment rate, was Black or African American. Wow. It was 6%, even though the economy was doing great.
Wow, it is double those of their white counterparts.
Exactly. And it followed by Hispanic or Latino. Just in case, please, I would like to point out that race here is white, Black or African American, and Asian. Ethnicity is Hispanic.
Got it.
I put it all together, but just in case. But yes, followed by Hispanics. No? Then in May, what we have seen is that actually Black and African Americans have, again, a very high unemployment rate, but I think Hispanics or Latinos have been, higher, might be because of the immigration problem.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So kind of a compounding problem that affects Hispanic and Latinos.
Correct. Then I think, and as you can see, I think that these numbers explain what is going on, currently with the protest and Black Lives Matter, and what is currently the social situation in our country.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible. I've got some more questions for you. This is shifting gears a little bit.
Okay.
This is from a new graduate that says, you gave us some things to focus on, but I've just finished getting my education. What do I need to focus on to be prepared for the new normal?
Well, for those new graduates, okay, you have your knowledge domain. Okay, you know what you know. Okay, you have your analytical skills. You have the technology as well. Okay, then network, network, network. That's what you need. Now show what you have learned. Show your experience. Communicate. Okay, very important. You have just got from Mercer all the tools to be flexible, to adapt to the situation, to be productive.
Mhm.
Now, you know that this is new graduate has to go out and start telling the world how great this new graduate is.
So here's a follow-up question to that. I'm just, asking the questions that are here. Uh, how do I network? What platforms do I use? How do I make that happen now that the world is virtual?
Well, actually, we have among our participants Anne Kelly. I think she will be a better person to answer that question. Could
So
that
let
be
me
possible?
introduce you, Ann. This is Ann Kelly. She's the Director of Career Services. Did I get that right?
That's correct.
Here for the Stetson Hatcher School of Business, and thank you for joining us. She's been waiting in the wings, folks. So I've been waiting to pull her into this conversation. So the question is about networking. Now that the new normal is different, how do I network and share with folks what my skills are and that I might be an asset to their job?
Absolutely. And so many things haven't changed. So still one of our most prevalent profiles for this or platforms for this would be LinkedIn. And that would be, I would say, looking at the alums for Mercer and any other institutions that you've attended and reaching out. The Career Service Department has ways to help you with messaging. So often the question becomes, even if you figure out what you should do, it's what do you say? And what do you say next? And what are the protocols? So we're happy to go over those protocols with you. I think what's been really good now is many people have found a rhythm. And especially as we see among professional jobs, many people are going to be working from home for an extended period of time. In some ways, that's limited their time, but in other ways, that's open time. So you may find that you can grab 10 or 15 minutes with someone who otherwise was in a car for close to 2 hours a day. And there might be more opportunity for that. Another part that helps with networking is looking at the different webinars that are going on all the time. You truly could spend 24/7 with 5 computers in front of you and still not see all the webinars that are going on. When you see a webinar, go ahead with that webinar and look at and take note with who is presenting. And that might be a person that you want to follow up with afterwards and say, I really enjoyed the content that you presented, would love to connect for 10 minutes or so if you had time. And it's been interesting the positive results people have received from that. Having great questions for people is the key to networking. So remembering that networking is about talking about them, not about saying, oh goodness, I'm trying to find a job. Can you help me? What do I put on my resume? The networking is much more laid back than that and a little easier.
That makes sense. That is wonderful. Well, folks, this has been incredibly helpful. How do we get in touch with either one of you in case we'd like to know a little bit more?
Wait a second. I have yes. I have my address here, my email address. Please send me an email message. And
absolutely. And if you go to the Stetson Hatcher website for career services, you will find all of my contact information. You're also welcome to connect with me through LinkedIn.
That is wonderful. Folks, thank you very much for doing this, and thank you for giving us this career information. And Dr. Kisbe-Anoli, thank you very much for sharing with us what the new normal looks like and giving us an overview of the economy of jobs. And then folks, thank you for joining us for the Mercer University Professional Development Series. I hope that this has empowered you, that you've gotten a little bit more information, and that you are ready to move forward and get that great job that you are looking for. Join us again next week as we will talk about the effect of the pandemic on businesses across the metro Atlanta area. We've got some very special guests that will be with us. So we look forward to you joining us once again here from Mercer University. We are signing off. Thank you again for being with us. Thank you, Miriam, and thank you, Ann, for being with us today.